On this evening's panel discussion, we take the opportunity to gauge the political concerns of young people, where they met in 2021 and what can be achieved in 2022. Well, joining us, the President of the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, Christina Williams, and Andre Stevens, a political analyst and radio host. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks much, gentlemen.
Let's start with you, Christina Williams. What's the main political issue for young people now?
Main political issue? Well, there are quite a few, but I think in a very general sense, a lot of us want to see the promises that were made to us during the election, not just to us as young people, but to all Jamaicans. We want to see those promises kept. And, you know, as we go into proposed cabinet reshuffle, we want to see how the successes of these different ministries will be maintained or built on, and how we can just ensure that there's a better Jamaica going forward for the new year.
What promises in particular are you zooming in on?
Well, tonight I speak on behalf of students and young people, so I will narrow my comments to young people and students. And one of the things that we're looking at is how we're going to transition to face-to-face learning come the new year. And for those of us who would want to still have the option to stay online, for most of my tertiary students, particularly those who work, we want to see how that will be facilitated in the new year. We want to see policies being put in place to ensure that there's still quality learning for all students, that differently abled students as well will be catered to. And we also want to ensure that I would say the recurring issues of funding of education will be handled in a more sustainable manner. And that, you know, we talk about the fact that a lot of us haven't been engaged in a meaningful way, how the knowledge gap that we have seen with, 1.3 billion class hours would have been lost since the start of COVID-19, how are we going to recoup that and narrow the knowledge gap that we would have seen. Things like that are what we're looking at for the new year.
Andre Stevens, what's the main political issue for young people, in your view?
Young people want opportunities. They want access to capital. They want leaders that look like them. They want people who listens to them and take their issues with respect, have these issues dealt with in a holistic way, and at the same time, respect their views. The politics of inclusion is what my able friend here and I have always been a part of, where the student council movement that honorable young lady there and I have been a part of, saw to it that we were taught that we must get a place at the table. You can't plan for us, Oliver, and you don't have us at the fore. So therefore, I want to ask, in this COVID reality, the Prime Minister has an effective resource of young people on the backbenches. And with that said, is he going to be making some serious political decisions that reflects the needs of our young people? When I look at the backbench, I see a Moreland Wilson. I see a Kerencia Morrison. I see a Rhoda Crawford that came from the bowels of Villa Road Primary to Knox College, to the university, to Shortwood. That's a success story of what? Prosperity, from poverty to prosperity.
All right, so let's hold it, and I'm going to ask you to just try to
I'm just crafting the narrative.
Keep it short as you can. We don't have a lot of time. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back on the panel discussion.
And welcome back. We're still looking at the political concerns of the youth. Excuse me. Still with us, Christina Williams, President of the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, and Andre Stevens, political analyst and radio host. Now, Mr. Stevens, you're talking about the issue of politics of inclusion, and Ms. Williams, you touched on the issue of young people in politics. I'm curious, how politically educated would you say that younger Jamaicans are? And I'll start with you, Ms. Williams.
Repeat that question, please.
How politically educated would you say your average young Jamaican is?
How politically educated is the average young Jamaican?
Yes.
You probably should define what you call young Jamaican, because what we tend to call youth in Jamaica tends not to be what a young person truly is. So please give me the definition.
Well, I would say, you know, obviously younger than me, so we're looking at, say, those capable of vote or about on the cusp of voting, so 17 to 30, 35.
Okay. Well, I think it varies. Young Jamaicans, we do know what we want to see, what we want to see in terms of development for young people and for Jamaica. So we are very clear on what looks like development to us and development for us, right? But I mean, sometimes there are nuances that we're not fully aware of, like what's the difference between a councillor and an MP. A lot of us, even older Jamaicans, don't know the difference between their MP and their councillors, or between what's the role of the minister. A lot of us are not fully au fait with the roles and responsibilities of the different persons within the political system. So no, we are not fully politically educated, but I don't think we should use that to say, well, persons don't know what they want. I think we very much know Jamaica that we want to see. We want to live, work, raise family, do business in. We know the definition of Jamaica that we want to see, but I think where it falls down is that we tend not to get that when we vote, because the political dictator tends to know what exactly to say to some of us to get us to vote, because we know what we want to see. But then when it's time for that promise to be kept, it tends not to be. But I think Jamaicans know what they want to see. We may not know all the definitions, but we know what we want to see for Jamaica.
Mr. Stevens.
Can I just add to that? The last two elections, we were promised accountability and we were promised transparency. In the last political year, and this political year in focus, we have seen many issues and allegations of corruption. Corruption in so many department, agencies, and ministries. And what I'm expecting of the Prime Minister at this time is to make the political decision in the interest of those who he represents.
Now, you know, I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing. The numbers, 2016 was 47.7% turnout. Last general election, 37.85% turnout. Mm-hmm. When you look at it, young people tend to vote a lot less than individuals like myself in middle age, and especially the elderly. You know, so, as a demographic, why should a politician speak to them if they know they're not going to get their vote?
In all truth, the politician is, the onus on the politician is to speak to every Jamaican.
In a perfect world, yes.
In a perfect world. And in a realistic world, he needs to speak to those who is the future of this country. The future of this country is those 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. When I don't have access to internet and I can't be in a school system where a teacher can train me and teach me because there is no internet, there is no tablets in a COVID reality, but yet still there is a minister who is alleged to have taken so many monies and there is no accountability. Therefore, that young man or woman is apathetic. He's apathetic towards what? A political system that promised him what? Housing, greater access to university education, greater access to healthcare, greater access to capital as a young entrepreneur.
Well, so like you should be in parliament. Why aren't you running?
Why I'm not running is because I've been turned off by the same process. Both P and J has never given young people like myself and Christina opportunities to represent. You know, when you speak out, when you speak out, Basil, when you speak out in this country, you know what happens to you?
You get on television.
It's not a matter of television. You're sidelined and hushed away.
With all the respect, you're sitting here right now, and we're having
but you ask, what about being in the parliament? So when you're a revolutionist like a Andre and a Christina, and many other Jamaicans who want to see a difference in this country, you're sidelined, and I can speak about my experience, but I don't need to get there. What I'm speaking about, we want a new Jamaica. We want a Jamaica.
Right. Okay. So I understand your point, and you've made that point. Ms. Williams, as we move on with this conversation, we do have an issue of brain drain. It's long been an issue in Jamaica, and he has touched on it with the issue of education, lack of internet, et cetera, et cetera. How do we stem that tide of our best and brightest going elsewhere to fulfill the promises of their potential?
The government has to admit that they cannot provide all the opportunities that we need locally. And they have to invest in us, whether it be through some kind of bonding process. So they invest in us, they allow us to go abroad and find jobs there, meaningful employment. And there's some system of remittances where we're still paying our taxes here, we're still contributing to the development of our country, but they encourage us and enable us to go away and seek opportunities. Because the truth is, the thousands of young people that are bright and they have ideas, not just in the formal education system, but also in the informal sector. We have many entrepreneurs, persons who have necessarily transitioned to tertiary education, but they're still bright and still have ideas and they're doing great things for the economy. We don't have enough opportunities here. That's just the fact of the matter. And we have to admit that and enable young people to go away to seek opportunities elsewhere.
But Christina, earlier you touched on the issue of a cabinet reshuffle. The Prime Minister has been talking about it. Is that something that young people care about?
Some of us do care. I can